This is Darren Marchant with American Nomad News, and last night at the library, I was listening to a video that was really long, and was one of those panel discussions that usually the information is really important, and they drag that stuff out so bad that you just keep wanting to shut it off. But it was kind of funny. They kept coming around to stuff that piqued my interest. And it was, they were discussing the business side, the financial side of space on a government level and how that's changing. It's really interesting because NASA's original mission was basically to develop, my lips are frozen, it's cold, to develop space enough that business can take over the reins and run with it. Which is a lot similar, very similar to the way that the railroads were put across the U.S., in that the government took the bill kind of initially in some of the exploration and so forth. And in these kinds of projects, you see the money goes towards developing the stuff that industry just can't risk or they'd fall under. And that's exactly what they were talking about. It got really interesting when they started talking about how the government's basic plan now was to become the customer by building the landing strips, so to speak. They were using that euphemistically, although that's probably part of the deal in the long run, is developing kind of spaceport on the moon. But they didn't really mention spaceport on the moon. They didn't talk about that, but that's kind of where it was leading to, because they were talking about in situ resource utilization. Pulling gases from regolith, pulling water ice out of the moon, and that would be fuel. Now, that's only part of the picture, and I think that it's really interesting that they mention specifically that the big industry, old guard, old space, traditional space, they were trying to refer to it, trying to be polite, was reticent to get involved in really ambitious space flight. And you see Elon Musk's video about how one of the astronauts was against us going back to the moon, and it had Elon Musk just heartbroken. But he's like, I'm going anyway. We're going to do this. He's not giving it up. That's fantastic. I think we should keep in mind that the achievements of our heroes is not always define the heroes as much as we'd like. At the same time, this bodes really well for the protection of the planet and humanity in general. I was also watching a video where they were talking about protecting the Earth from big asteroids. And the quote-unquote expert was like, I was on a panel on that. That's impossible. And it's only impossible if you're putting a whole bunch of assumptions up front. And that's what a lot of people are doing. I also noticed that on discussion groups about space, they're kind of monopolized. Guys with some prestige and a lot of, energy into it they're basically, their billboard says, go space. And then the rules say, but don't talk about anything that's going to make it successful. And they'll throw you off the board. I used to be a big fan of Robert Zubrin, and I still kind of like the guy. But the first time I got threw off his Facebook group was because I suggested that we might bring bees to Mars. Well, how else are you going to have food on Mars unless you grow it there? Mars is truly isolated. It is the frontier, the far frontier. The low Earth orbit is only recently been tamed a little bit, and we have some cleanup to do from that whole process that's very important, and Trump put in an executive order to clean up orbital debris, which I think is incredibly important. But it's just paper until we start doing something. The moon is the frontier, and it's achievable in short order, and it will springboard all the activity in space. It can also protect us dramatically from asteroids. Asteroid impacts are a major risk to the Earth, and if we can mine a mountain in Lead, South Dakota, completely out of existence, we can take the same size rock and turn it into dust and run it through all the chemical processes that we do and turn it into plumbing and sheet metal and all the things that we make out of dirt. And we make a lot of stuff out of dirt. Dirt and air gives us everything from food to steel I-beams to the bricks this building is made out of. Let me see how many minutes we got here. Looks like 7. So there's good news coming down the block for space, but it's a hard fight, and we've got some folks in the mix that they sound like they're all for the program, but it's really hard to see that come through. And all of this stuff is very, very long term. It's you have to have the super long view, and you have to stay in the fight no matter what, or it's just not going to work. Bridenstine, somebody said that he was stepping down. I don't know that yet, but that's a bummer because I really like the guy. And he had great enthusiasm. And we'll see who steps up to the plate next. Huh. Looks like they got barricades all up everywhere. All around the community center. They got some sort of event going on. Oh yeah, it's the little kids. They're doing the little kid thing today. The drive-through Santa. That ought to be a hoot. So this is Darren Marchant with American Nomad News, signing off with a little space segment for you.